There is a moment, brief, unscripted, almost invisible, when a person's real character slips through the cracks of their performance. It happens in the space between what they intend to show you and what they don't realize they're showing you. A smile that doesn't quite reach a moment of frustration. A tone that shifts the instant they think no one important is listening. These are the fractures where truth escapes. Most people don't lie about who they are with words. They lie with consistency. They construct a version of themselves, polished, agreeable, likable, and presented deliberately, especially to those who matter. Employers, partners, new acquaintances, anyone whose opinion carries weight. But personality, the real architecture beneath the surface, doesn't announce itself. It leaks. And if you know where to look, it becomes almost impossible to hide. This is the foundation of everything that follows. Character is not what someone claims about themselves. It is not even what they intend to display. Character is what remains constant when performance becomes inconvenient, exhausting, or simply unnecessary. Why we get fooled. Human beings operate with two selves, the presented self and the default self. The presented self is curated for approval. The default self emerges when vigilance drops, when stakes feel low, when consequences seem absent, when the audience seems unworthy of the performance. The gap between these two selves is not a flaw unique to dishonest people. It exists in everyone to some degree. But the width of that gap and what fills it tells you everything about who you're truly dealing with. The wider the gap, the more calculated the mask. The narrower it is, the more integrity holds the structure together even without an audience. Sign 1. How they treat people who can do nothing for them. Watch how someone speaks to a waiter, a cashier, a stranger asking for directions. These are the interactions with zero social or professional consequence. No networking value, no risk of retaliation, no observer who matters. This is where entitlement, impatience, or quiet contempt reveals itself most clearly, precisely because there is nothing to gain from restraint. Kindness under scrutiny is common courtesy. Kindness without incentive is character. Sign 2. Their reaction to being told no. Denial is a small but potent stress test. Watch what happens when a request is refused, a reservation unavailable, a discount denied, a plan rejected. Composure in the face of no reflects internal security. Escalation, guilt-tripping, or thinly veiled aggression reveals a self-image that cannot tolerate limitation. The size of someone's reaction to a minor refusal is rarely about the refusal itself. It is about how tightly their identity depends on getting their way. Sign 3. What they joke about. Humor operates as a pressure valve for genuine belief. People rarely joke about things they don't, on some level, actually think. Sarcasm, teasing, and just kidding often function as socially acceptable delivery systems for real opinions about others, about power, about fairness. Pay attention not just to what makes someone laugh, but to what they choose to mock. Patterns here expose values far more accurately than any direct conversation could, because humor bypasses the same filters that guard more serious statements. Sign 4. How they handle being wrong. Watch closely the instant someone is corrected. Not punished, simply corrected. This is where two very different architectures of self reveal themselves. One person absorbs the correction, adjusts, and moves forward because their identity isn't fused to being right. Another person deflects, minimizes, or quietly rewrites the narrative because being wrong feels less like a fact and more like an attack. Notice that defensiveness is rarely about the mistake itself. It's about what the mistake threatens to expose. Genuine confidence can afford to say, "I was wrong." Fragile confidence cannot. Sign 5. Their behavior under stress or fatigue. A performance requires energy. Politeness, patience, charm. These take active effort to maintain, and effort has limits. This is why exhaustion is one of the most honest states a person can occupy. When someone is tired, rushed, hungry, or overwhelmed, the resources normally spent managing an image are redirected towards simply surviving the moment. What surfaces in that gap, patience or irritability, grace or coldness, is closer to factory settings than anything shown during a calm, well-rested first date or interview. If you want to know who someone really is, don't study them at their best. Study them at their most depleted. Sign 6. Consistency between words and actions over time. A single contradiction between what someone says and what they do is not damning. Everyone fails their own standards occasionally, but a pattern is different from an incident. Pattern is identity in motion. The person who claims loyalty but disappears during hardship, who claims honesty but curates convenient omissions, who claims humility but consistently centers themselves. These are not isolated lapses. They are signature. First impressions are auditions. Time is the only test that cannot be rehearsed for indefinitely, because maintaining a false pattern across months and years requires a level of vigilance almost no one can sustain. Sign 7. How they treat you when no one is watching. This is the final and most unfiltered signal of all. Public behavior is inherently theatrical, shaped by the presence of an audience, however small. Private behavior has no such audience, and therefore no incentive to perform. How someone speaks to you when there are no witnesses, no reputation at stake, no applause to earn. This is the closest most of us will ever get to seeing another person's unedited self. It is either reassuring or revealing, and it is rarely neutral. True personality was never going to be found in a single grand gesture. It was always going to be found in the accumulation of small, unguarded moments, the stranger they dismissed, the no they couldn't accept, the joke that slipped past the filter, the mistake they refused to own, the fatigue that stripped the performance away, the gap between promise and pattern, and the version of themselves that shows up when the room is empty. This isn't about becoming suspicious of everyone around you. It's about trading naivete for discernment, protecting your time, your trust, and your peace by learning to watch patterns instead of listening only to words. So here's the question worth sitting with. Think of someone in your life right now, a partner, a friend, a colleague. When no one is watching, when nothing is owed, when there's nothing to gain, who are they? Really?